Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the Italian authorities for the organization here in the Milan Expo of this AMIS session. And I would also like to thank Abby for asking the EU to present the global wheat situation. So what are the prospects for the global wheat production? We are going to a new record of 735 million tons. So it's a small increase above last year's record. On the utilization side as well, there is an increase of 2%. It's the dotted line. The utilization will reach 727 million tons. So a difference between production and utilization only of 8 million tons, and we are at a record production. Due to this record production for the second year in a row, global stocks increased as well to reach a 13-year high at 205 million tons. This seems ample, but nevertheless, we will come later to that. It's in absolute value. When you go in relative values, stock-to-use ratio, it's less comfortable than it looks like. World trade in 2015-16 will decrease slightly compared to 2014 for two reasons: reduced imports from Morocco and also from several countries in Asia. You see the next slide, but I don't see it on my screen. I have to which time? So if we check the production per countries, we see that production is higher in Australia. There's still a long way to go, but good yields are forecast, good rains, and so also good soil moisture conditions. In Turkey as well, we will have an 18% increase of production. The yields will be well above average yields, and this good yields compensated less plantings. Ukraine, plus 7% compared to 2014, beneficial weather, and so a very good crop in Ukraine. In the US, higher yields than average, and also lower abandonment rates. On the other hand, production is lower in Argentina, reduced plantings, and it leads to a reduction in production of 22%. It's also due to lower prices and higher production costs in Argentina. Canada, minus 11% compared to 2014. It's a production decline. They reflect reduced yields for both spring and minor durum wheat crops. In the EU, but we will speak later about it, we have also a small decrease, 1% compared to 2014-15, but as at global level, 2014-15 was a record year in the EU. In India, minus 7%, because the wheat crop was affected by unfavorable weather conditions. So what about the climate? In the northern hemisphere, overall conditions are favorable. The spring wheat season is nearly closed, and winter wheat plantings begins. For spring wheat, conditions are favorable in Kazakhstan and Russia, whereas conditions are more mixed in Canada. For winter wheat, conditions are mostly favorable in the US and Russia, whereas some concerns in the EU and Ukraine as well. For the southern hemisphere, the conditions are mixed. As I said, Australia, good conditions, but they are a little bit deteriorating in most states. In Argentina, conditions are generally favorable, and in Brazil and South Africa, there are some concerns. So coming now to the feed wheat utilization, there will be an increase of 4% in 2015 compared to 2014. China feed use could expand by 3% due to continued high domestic maize prices, so there will be a shift between maize and feed wheat. And low quality wheat and barley are still high on demand in China. In the US, wheat used for animal feed is expected also to increase due to large availability of low-quality wheat. In EU as well, AMIS forecasts grow in feed wheat use to 55.5 million tons. It's supported, of course, by a short maize crop in 2015. On the stock side, wheat inventories, as I said, will reach 205 million tons. It's the highest since 2002-2003. And as I said before, world wheat stock-to-use ratio in 2015-16 is projected close to 29%, and that's the highest since 2011-12. But still, as I said before, in relative value, we are less comfortable than in absolute value. The major wheat exporters closing stock to their disappearance ratio, defined as domestic use plus export, is put a little bit below 17%, and this is well above the low of 13% in 2007-2008. So wheat inventories will increase in US, Russia, and EU at least. So, world wheat trade. As I said before, world wheat trade will decrease slightly in 2015-16. If we now look first to the major exporters. For Canada, the forecast is to cut the shipments by 25%, only to 6 million tons, in response to a decline in domestic production. In the EU, we will decrease by 5 million tons, but I have to remind you that 2014 was a record for the EU. In Argentina, the exports are likely to increase slightly because there are large ending stocks, 2014-15 ending stocks. For Russia, export could exceed 2014-15 record, supported by a record crop and weak national currency. Although we must have some concerns about the export tax. For Ukraine as well, export could hit a new record based on rapid pace in sales over the last few months. US export to remain close to the previous marketing year in spite of a slight increase in domestic wheat production due to the strong dollar and competition with cheaper wheat from other origins. Okay, wheat trade, but this time with the view of the importers. Turkey imports are expected to decline significantly following a record crop in 2015. Iran as well, imports could decline sharply to reach only 2.5 million tons, also thanks to good domestic supplies. And Morocco, imports to fall, given this year's record wheat harvest. Okay, what about prices now? Large supplies continue pushing international price of wheat sharply below their previous year's level. Uncertainty about the impact of adverse weather on crops during the critical growing stage caused steep increase in prices just before the start of the season in July. As crop conditions improved, expectation of another record crop started to weigh on prices, resulting in downward trend that has also been influenced by falling prices in other commodity markets. The benchmark, the US #2 hard winter for Gulf, averaged around $280 per ton in September, down $60 per ton, or nearly 22% from 1 year ago. Similarly, wheat futures have remained under downward pressure since January 2015. In September, the Chicago Board of Trade quotation for December delivery averaged at $179 US per ton, down 3% from September 2014. So this one. Spoke a lot about future prices. What we can see here is that the wheat forward curves continue to reflect poor export outlook and ample supply. And if we check what are the managed money position, they increase their net position, their net short position in September. We are there. So where is the main producer in the EU is France, followed by Germany, United Kingdom, Poland, for total wheat. And again, you have on the right side, in fact, where the durum wheat is produced. Of course, a small part in France, but in Italy, it's around 50% of total wheat is durum wheat. If we check this map, in fact, it compares per member state the difference with the 5-year Olympic average. At global level for the EU, the difference is plus 10%, so we're 10% above the 5-year Olympic average. The colors in green, dark green, means that you are more than 10% above the 5-year average. Slight green, I would see between 5 and 10%. The yellow part is around average, and in red, it's 10% less than the 5-year average. As you can see, in at least few member states producing a lot of soft wheat, France, Germany, also the Baltic states, we are well above 10% compared to the 5-year average. One slide to show you what is the share of the EU. If you look only the 8 big exporters, the 8 bigs as we said. If we do that on a trimmed average for the 5 last year, the EU represents 40% of the production of the 8 big exporters. So 8 big exporters mean Russia, US, Canada, Australia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Argentina. Coming to our balance sheet, I know it's a little bit difficult maybe to read the figures, but you will certainly have the slides afterwards. What we can see is that our production for soft wheat, so the left part of this slide, will be at around 145 million tons, so only soft wheat. It means a decline by 3% compared to last year. On the other hand, durum wheat increased slightly after a long decline over the last year by 5% to 8 million tons. Imports of soft wheat will be more or less stable at 3 million tons. Export, as I said before, and as it's written in the AMIS bulletin, will decrease from 33 million tons to 28 million tons. It includes flour as well here, so a decrease by 5 million tons. But this 33 million tons was really the record of our exports. Feed use will be more or less stable, so that's a little bit a contradiction with what is in the AMIS bulletin, but so we will wait because the maize crop has still to come, so maybe there will be some changes in the future there. So it means that our ending stocks for soft wheat will increase by more than 30% from 11 million tons to nearly 15 million tons. On the durum wheat, there, as I said, the production will be 8 million tons. We will need less imports. Today they are forecast at 1.8 million tons. It means 1 million tons less than last year. On the other side, export will be more or less stable, around 1.2 million tons, leading to a small reduction in ending stocks. This graph to show you the situation of our exports since the beginning of the year 2000. In yellow, you have wheat exports, so soft plus durum. You see that we had a record last year if we compile soft wheat plus durum, close to 35 million tons. It's a record, and as Anne said, this is a record without refunds, of course. No refunds at all, and we decreased a lot what was exported in the 90s when there were a lot of refunds in the EU. What you can see as well is this red dotted line. It shows our net export position, And as you can see, except during this 2007-2008 year where we had a very short crop, we are normally always net exported, and this net position increased during the last years. So what about the situation for the sowings? What we can see here is that the winter wheat sowing calendar of the EU, it's the left map. Roughly, we can say that all the member states or regions above the red line, the sowings ended or are close to end, whereas below, still, the sowing have to take place. If we compare that with the rainfall, then we can observe two things at least. I'll highlight it with a red circle. Poland, nearly no rainfall during this period, and the sowing window is nearly finished. So there we will see certainly a problem. On the other hand, in Italy, but also in the Iberian Peninsula, two zones with significant rainfall occurred this time, a lot of rainfall. At this stage of sowing process in the EU, the area of concern is focused or limited to Poland. That's a real problem, where cumulated rainfall is clearly insufficient. This region will be closely monitored in the next day by the European Commission services. And finally, a last slide. Here we compare the relative soil moisture for wheat and the cumulated rainfall from 19 September to 10 of October. It's the same map that you saw in the previous slide on the right side. We can see first that the situation in Poland is really of concern. In addition to the lack of water around sowing, the level of soil moisture is for the time being very low, less than 30%, with possible negative impact on the growth later. But secondly, on the contrary, for Spain, Portugal, and Italy, the significant rainfall will certainly improve the water availability, which was very low end of September. If you allow me to put some concluding remarks, Mr. Chair, what can we say? First, 2015 all wheat crop is against a record at global level, after a 2014 record, and well above the 5-year Olympic average at global and also at EU level. Nevertheless, there is a big difference between soft wheat, very good supply, and durum wheat, tidy situation for several years now. Third, utilization continued to increase, as well for food and for feed. 4, ending stocks, comfortable, as I said, for soft wheat, not for durum, of course. Highest in absolute value, but not in relative stock-to-use value. 5, prices, they are not high, but fair, I think. And certainly, they are fair for the consumer, food and feed producers. And we can see no excessive volatility, I would say, in the last months and last year itself. And in such a situation of more or less flat price, not real flat price, more or less flat prices, I think what's really, really important, and Joe said it as well, is the exchange rate. The exchange rate can really be the motor of this marketing year. Thank you, Mr. Chair.